Should active duty Marines ever be deployed to respond to protests inside the United States? That constitutional and military question took center stage when combat veteran Senator Tammy Duckworth challenged Marine Corps Commandant General Eric Smith over President Trump's decision to send hundreds of Marines to Los Angeles. Their exchange quickly became a debate over military readiness, mental health, and the proper role of America's armed forces at home.
Do you, General, have any concerns about the moral injury of Marines who are now being tasked to face Americans and deploy their community in an unprecedented way? And what are you doing to address those mental health concerns?
Senator, Marines will execute their lawful orders. I don't have any concerns that about their moral damage. They're executing lawful orders that they're trained to do. They're completely confident and they're capable of conducting protection of federal personnel and federal property.
I have no question on their ability to do their jobs. They're Marines, after all. My concern is the psychological injury to Marines who are going to be told to turn on their fellow Americans. We know, and would you agree that there can be hidden injuries such as mental health injuries to Marines, whether they're at war? I mean, when you go to war, would you agree that there are hidden injuries that can happen, such as psychological injuries?
There are psychological injuries when one goes to war, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Are you concerned that there might be psychological injuries to the Marines who are being told to turn on American citizens during this deployment?
Well, Senator, I would say that these Marines are not being told to turn on their fellow citizens. They're conducting federal property protection.
So you have no concern that there might be Marines that are having a psychological negative reaction to being put on. I'm not saying that they can't do their jobs. I'm saying you have no concerns and you're not preparing for any mental health counseling as a result of this deployment for these 700 Marines.
Senator, we always have mental health counseling available to Marines at all times for any purpose, but I don't have any heightened concerns about this.
Okay. Well, active duty troops are trained for war fighting and not policing. We ask a lot of different, very difficult things of our troops, taxing their mental health. And now we're sending them to turn on their own communities outside of their normal training. I would be concerned for the well-being of our heroes. I want to switch my line of questioning to sealift and leveraging our international partners. There's a reason that our system is supposed to prevent the use of our military on our soil, except for the most necessary circumstances. Ideally, in coordination with local elected leaders, the alternative is un-American. From my perch on this committee, and a Commerce Committee, changing topics a little bit, I am concerned about our military and commercial maritime capacity. I appreciate the leadership of many of my colleagues on this issue, and I strongly support ongoing efforts to expand our domestic shipbuilding industrial base. Even with this renewed emphasis on domestic shipbuilding, especially of commercial vessels or big-ticket military ships, I remain concerned that we are underinvesting in a critical element of any future fight, sealift. It will not matter how many submarines or destroyers we can build if equipment, fuel, and resupply cannot make it to theater. And if our troops don't have enough ships to ferry each other and their resupply from place to place within the theater, and this is especially important for the Marines to have amphibious and local resources, I'd like to ask all of our witnesses, do you agree that we lack the necessary number of sealift or auxiliary vessels to meet the logistical demands of a contested environment in the Indo-Pacific? Admiral, I'd like to start with you, and everybody on the panel, please respond.
I think we could do better there, ma'am. I'm not sure I would say we lack. I do think we've pursued a buy-used philosophy, and those used ships, at least the initial ones, took a lot more work to get them serviceable. The latest ones have been better, but I think a buy new and used philosophy is probably prudent going forward.
Do you think we could benefit from partnering with friendly foreign nations on co-production and co-sustainment of auxiliary vessels, from cargo ships to small supply boats to cable repair ships, et cetera, to build surge production and maintenance capacity within the theater?
I do, Senator, and I also think there's opportunities to bring that work into the United States.
Yeah, I think there's opportunity for both. Mr. Secretary?
I concur with the Admiral. I don't have really much to add to what he said.
What currently prevents the Navy from developing or scaling foreign partnerships to build or maintain our auxiliary vessels, Mr. Secretary?
Senator, look, I think there are a couple of different issues we have to tackle when it comes to those. But I think it's, as I said in my testimony during confirmation, all options are on the table, and we do need to look at this, and we do need to look at both having foreign builders build some ships like this for us, and also, obviously, they're coming here and looking at investing in our base and bringing their expertise. So I think that would be very useful to us.
Or even partnering with American builders, but overseas in theater to be able to provide immediate repair.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The debate over deploying active duty Marines on U.S. soil did not end with this Senate Armed Services Committee hearing. In the weeks and months that followed, the Trump administration defended the Los Angeles deployment as a lawful use of the president's constitutional authority to protect federal personnel and property, while California officials continued challenging the decision in federal court. The deployment became one of the most closely watched disputes over the limits of presidential authority to use the military during domestic unrest. As the legal battle continued through 2025 and into 2026, federal courts examined the scope of the president's authority under Title X and Article 2 of the Constitution, although broader constitutional questions surrounding domestic military deployments remain the subject of continuing litigation and public debate. Meanwhile, Congress continued holding oversight hearings examining civil-military relations, the role of the National Guard, and whether active duty forces should be used in situations traditionally handled by civilian law enforcement. Those developments provide important context for Senator Tammy Duckworth's exchange with Marine Corps Commandant General Eric Smith. Duckworth, a combat veteran and member of a Marine Corps family, made clear that her criticism was not directed at the Marines themselves. Instead, she questioned the policy decision to deploy approximately 700 active-duty Marines to Los Angeles in response to civil unrest. While acknowledging that the deployment could be lawful under an expansive interpretation of presidential authority, she argued that employing Marines in a domestic protest environment risked politicizing one of the nation's most trusted military institutions. Her principal concern involved what she described as the potential moral injury or psychological impact on service members. Duckworth noted that Marines are trained primarily for combat operations rather than domestic security missions, and asked whether asking them to confront fellow Americans could create long-term mental health consequences similar to the hidden psychological injuries experienced during military deployments. General Smith disagreed with that assessment. He testified that the Marines were carrying out lawful orders and were assigned a limited mission focused on protecting federal personnel and federal property rather than policing civilians. He expressed confidence in the Marines' professionalism and stated that he had no heightened concerns about the deployment's psychological impact beyond the mental health resources that are routinely available throughout the Marine Corps. The hearing then shifted from domestic operations to military readiness in the Indo-Pacific. Duckworth raised concerns about the United States sealift capacity, warning that even the world's most capable military cannot sustain operations without sufficient logistics ships, fuel, equipment, and resupply vessels. She questioned whether the Navy should expand partnerships with allied nations to build and maintain auxiliary vessels, particularly in the Indo-Pacific theater. The witnesses generally agreed that America's sealift capability requires improvement. They expressed support for exploring a combination of domestic shipbuilding and partnerships with trusted allies, including opportunities for foreign shipbuilders to invest in U.S. production and for allied facilities to help maintain and repair vessels closer to potential operational areas. It is important to distinguish between the verified facts discussed during this hearing and the policy disagreements surrounding them. It is a matter of public record that approximately 700 Marines were deployed to Los Angeles under federal orders, and that the administration stated their mission was to protect federal personnel and property. Whether that deployment represented an appropriate use of presidential authority, however, remains a subject of legal interpretation and political debate rather than an established factual conclusion. Looking back, this hearing captured two national security challenges that continue to shape defense policy. One concerns the constitutional boundaries of using active-duty military forces during domestic emergencies. The other involves ensuring that the United States has the logistical capacity to sustain military operations in an increasingly contested Indo-Pacific region. Both issues have remained central topics of congressional oversight and defense planning long after this exchange concluded.